Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into a dusty little workshop, somewhere deep inside ancient China. You shuffle forward, careful not to disturb the scattered bits of wood, bamboo strips, and little pots of glue that clutter the stone floor. The air smells faintly of resin and old smoke, a musty concoction that fills your nostrils with each slow breath. Lantern light flickers off rough-hewn beams, casting long, spindly shadows that seem to dance just out of reach. It's the kind of place where time pools and thickens, where a whole afternoon can vanish between blinks as hands tinker and minds drift. Somewhere in the distance, the muffled squawk of chickens and the metallic clatter of a nearby market barely break the trance of the space. And right here, in the midst of this mess, a man leans over a crooked workbench. His robes are threadbare, the ink stains on his sleeves speak of a life spent in sketching strange ideas on silk scraps. His name? Well, that's already slipping through history's sieve. You probably won't survive this journey with any clear memory of who exactly he was. Funny how fame works, blurry at best, miscredited at worst. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling awake enough, post your location and local time below. It's always incredible to see who's drifting off where. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You edge closer, watching as his fingers fumble with thin slices of bamboo. He sighs, brows furrowed, adjusting a twist of twine at the center of two flat paddles. The goal? He's trying to solve a problem that's nagged philosophers and artisans alike, lifting something into the air. Not just tossing it or shooting it from a bow, real, sustained lift. He's convinced that if he could get the air to push back somehow, the way water does against a rowing oar, he might have something new. The problem is, nothing he's tried so far has worked. Paper wings collapse, little frames built from reeds barely flutter before plummeting. His neighbors call him the wind fool behind closed doors. You smile a little. It's always the ones who stay up too late chasing impossible things that earn the best nicknames. Outside, twilight sinks its teeth deeper into the streets, painting everything in cooler, bluer shades. He's oblivious, tongue poking slightly from the corner of his mouth as he carefully winds a loop of cord around the bamboo shaft, tying it snugly, hoping, praying, this time will be different. It's a quiet sort of defiance, really. History books love to shout about emperors and generals, but they often forget the soft persistence of the tinkerers, the men and women who fail 100 times so that the 101st might just change the world. Historians still argue whether that's more important than battles and treaties. You kneel down, peering closer. His latest contraption is simple. Two flat blades extend from a slim, straight rod, each angled just so, held fast with a tight knot of twine. He presses his palms together around the rod's base and, with a little grunt, spins it sharply. The thing whirs, buzzing in a low, dragonfly hum. And then, wonder of wonders, it lifts. Not high. Just a few finger widths off the work table. But it hovers there, wobbling slightly, before tilting and falling with a clatter. Still, your mouth parts in a silent gasp. You think he's about to shout, to celebrate, but he only smiles, the corners of his eyes crinkling with something quieter, more profound. He picks it up, spins it again. It lifts once more, twirls drunkenly, then settles. It's no flying chariot, no sky-sailing palace. It's barely a toy, really. But your heart hammers anyway. Because in this dusty, forgotten little room, a man has just teased a secret from the air itself. Not with grand proclamations, but with patience, splinters, and stubbornness. He doesn't know it yet, but this simple bamboo spinner will be remembered, or at least, versions of it will be. Over time, it will shift and morph, inspiring curious minds far beyond his quiet little village. Some will call it a humble toy, others will see the bones of future machines hidden inside its spin. But for now, he just laughs under his breath, shakes his head, and spins it again. You sit cross-legged on the dusty floor, brushing aside wood shavings as the inventor leans back in his rickety chair. His gaze is fixed on the bamboo spinner, now resting lopsided on the table. The triumph of the last few minutes hums in the air, invisible but thick. He rubs his chin thoughtfully and then reaches for a fresh strip of bamboo. Tonight, he is wrestling with what you'll later call the string and bamboo dilemma. The bamboo slats are fragile, too much tension, and they splinter, too little, and they flap uselessly. The string, coarse and fibrous, must be twisted just right to transfer the perfect amount of energy. Too tight and the whole contraption snaps back at him, stinging his knuckles. Too loose and it droops pathetically. You watch as he cuts, whittles, and sands the bamboo into thinner, more even pieces. Outside, the marketplace is shutting down, the smell of cooked rice and roasted chestnuts lingering in the cooling air. Dogs bark in the distance. Somewhere, a merchant grumbles about bad trade day. But here, time folds in on itself, stretching long and thin like the fine bamboo strips in his hands. He threads a new piece of string through the center shaft, muttering under his breath, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. It's hard to tell. Now, here's the fun bit historians still argue over. Was this really the first toy, or just a lucky accident? Some say similar devices existed centuries earlier, rough sketches on scraps of cloth or carved into ancient pottery shards. Others insist that this was the very moment, the spark in the dark, when play was born from science. Of course, debates like these are irresistible to academics who enjoy sipping tea and arguing into the wee hours. He spins the new model between his palms. It lifts a bit higher this time, the string taut and responsive. The blades blur, making a faint whirring noise that stirs the cobwebs overhead. For a fleeting second, it seems almost alive, like a small bird startled into flight. You lean closer, marveling at the simplicity of it. 2 pieces of bamboo, 1 thin shaft, a loop of string. No bells or whistles. Just clever engineering disguised as a toy. It lands with a soft thunk this time, and he nods approvingly. Progress. He reaches for his wine jar, probably filled with something stronger than tea, and takes a celebratory sip. His face relaxes into a half-smile. Not exactly the triumphal pose of the great inventors you see in marble statues, but somehow more genuine. A cat slinks through the open doorway, giving you a suspicious side-eye before settling by the fire pit. The inventor scratches its head absently, lost in thought. You get the feeling that he's thinking less about fame or fortune and more about the curious way the toy twists against the pull of gravity. You glance around the workshop, noting other half-finished projects. A water clock that leaks constantly, a bamboo water wheel that never quite turns evenly, a kite with torn silk wings. This place is a graveyard of ideas, but tonight it's a birthplace. The fire crackles softly, throwing dappled light across the walls. You notice a stack of old manuscripts by his feet, notes scribbled in a language that won't survive the centuries unchanged. The scholars of the future will pore over these scraps, trying to decode his intentions, some getting it wildly wrong, as they often do. A breeze stirs through the room, lifting the fringe of his sleeves and sending a few loose shavings skittering across the floor. It's a quiet moment, but charged with the unspoken knowledge that something tiny and ridiculous has just been pulled from the fabric of the universe. He tinkers a bit more, adjusting the string, shaving another sliver from the blades. You watch, mesmerized, as he sends the spinner soaring again. It dances drunkenly through the air before listing to one side and falling with a soft clatter. In the far-off future, some clever engineer will look back on this moment and smile, seeing the same fundamental principles that will lift helicopters and drones into the skies. But for now, it's just bamboo, string, and a man too stubborn to quit. You wonder if he knows. Probably not. He just grins, spins it again, and watches it fly. The fire dies down to a whispering glow as the night deepens, but you stay put, entranced. Across from you, the inventor cups the spinner in his hands, almost tenderly, as if afraid the tiny miracle might vanish if he lets it go. He shifts his weight, cracks his knuckles, and with a sharp flick of his palms, sends the thing spinning into the air once more. And this time, it happens. The bamboo copter, that's what you're calling it now, doesn't just hover or lurch. It rises. Gracefully, stubbornly, it climbs a good hand's breadth into the air, spinning faster than a dragonfly's wing beat. You swear you can hear the faintest whistle as it cuts through the air. For a few glorious seconds, it holds steady, before slowing, tilting, and descending in a slow, wobbling spiral to the table. You stifle a gasp, as if the noise might break the spell. The inventor chuckles, a low sound rumbling from his chest. He leans back, hands on his knees, looking as if he's not entirely sure what he's done but pleased all the same. You'd expect fanfare, right? A little parade through the village? Maybe a commemorative scroll or two. But no! Here, in this forgotten workshop, it's just you, the inventor, and the ancient, fluttering heartbeat of discovery. The interesting part? Historians still argue whether the bamboo copter was ever intended to be anything serious. Was it meant to be a prototype for something greater, an experiment in flight, a precursor to the fantastical flying machines sketched centuries later by dreamers and madmen? Or was it simply a man fiddling around with spare parts on a slow evening? The scholarly debate continues, with no consensus in sight. Some point to obscure texts that describe similar devices used by healers or shamans, spinning objects through the air to summon spirits or impress patients. Others argue that it was nothing more than idle tinkering, a brief and shining accident before it was lost to time. You imagine this man, years from now, older and perhaps no wiser, still spinning these simple toys, still waiting for someone, anyone, to notice. But tonight, he's content. Outside, the moon peeks between drifting clouds, casting a soft, silver glow over the landscape. The bamboo spinner catches a stray moonbeam on its next flight, gleaming briefly before fluttering back to the worn tabletop. It's mesmerizing, the way it dances and dips, a miniature cosmos contained within a circle of bamboo and string. The inventor scratches the back of his head, considering his creation. Then, with a shrug, he tosses it toward a corner of the room, where it clatters softly onto a pile of discarded bits and bobs. Already moving on, already reaching for another scrap of bamboo. You suppress a grin. Of course. The mind that creates such a thing rarely stops at one wonder. The world outside may never know his name, but here, surrounded by the sighs and creaks of an old workshop, he's already a legend. You trace a finger along the worn grooves of the work table, wondering what it must feel like to birth something truly new into the world, even if nobody notices right away. Nearby, the cat snores, oblivious to the momentousness of the occasion. The inventor hums a tuneless melody under his breath, hacking at a fresh piece of bamboo with a worn knife. Chips fly. His movements are sure, confident, the mark of someone who's failed enough times to know that failure is just the long road to success. He spins the next prototype between his palms. It doesn't fly quite as high. It tilts awkwardly and falls almost immediately, but he doesn't seem discouraged. He just chuckles again, a little softer this time, and leans in to adjust the angle of the blades. You sit back and watch as he works, feeling the slow, hypnotic pull of the night. Here, in the flickering shadows, the world feels smaller, simpler. A man, a cat, and the first spin of wonder. Far beyond this moment, engineers and scientists will scratch their heads, wondering how such a simple idea took so long to bloom into something more. Helicopters, drones, even the simple joy of a child's toy soaring into the summer sky, all of it owes a little debt to this quiet evening and the accidental genius that unfolded within it. But for now, the bamboo copter spins and flies and falls, over and over again, as the night deepens and the fire dwindles to embers. The air grows cooler, seeping into the workshop through the cracks in the wooden walls. You wrap your arms around yourself and settle in as the inventor, undeterred by the creeping chill, keeps tinkering. It's clear now, he's chasing the magic, trying to catch lightning twice, or maybe thrice, with fresh bamboo slats and finer twine. You glance around and realize just how many odds and ends clutter the space. There are shards of old pottery, rusted tools, and what might have once been a functional abacus, now missing half its beads. On a sagging shelf near the fire pit sit jars of dubious contents, oils, powders, things that smell faintly of fish and something, sweeter, almost floral. You can't help but think this is what the inside of an inventor's mind must look like, cluttered, unpredictable, and brimming with possibility. Tonight's discovery feels bigger than it looks, though. Think about it, most inventions come from necessity, better tools, more efficient farming, faster travel. But this feels like boredom given wings. Historians still argue whether boredom was the real mother of invention, rather than necessity. Some claim that it was exactly these idle moments, these meandering experiments with no clear goal, that gave humanity its greatest leaps forward. After all, who looks at a spinning top or a kite and thinks, "Ah yes, this will be the foundation for conquering the skies"? The inventor fiddles with the blade angle, snipping the bamboo with more care this time. You watch his hands, steady, callous, practice. He's not thinking of profit or fame. He's thinking about balance, about the precise angle that will give the toy longer, smoother flight. And then, out of nowhere, a burst of childish laughter cuts through the night. You both turn toward the door where a trio of scrappy children stand, peering inside. Their faces are smudged with the day's adventures, and their eyes gleam with mischief and wonder. The inventor grins and waves them closer. Shyly, they shuffle into the workshop, their small feet padding softly on the packed earth floor. He holds out the bamboo copter to the nearest child, a wiry boy with a missing front tooth, and motions for him to try. The boy hesitates, then rubs his palms together eagerly. He grips the shaft awkwardly, mimicking the inventor's earlier movement, and spins. The toy rises, crooked, sputtering, but it rises. The boy's face splits into a wide grin, and he whoops, startling the cat awake with a jolt. The other children crowd around, clamoring for their turn. The inventor, looking more amused than he has all night, hands them each a prototype, some newer, some cracked and worn, and soon the little workshop is a blur of spinning bamboo, wild giggles, and the occasional thud as a toy crash lands. You sit back, letting the chaos wash over you. It's a simple joy, but an infectious one. The kids don't care about the physics behind lift or the potential for future aviation. They care that this thing, this strange little contraption, can defy gravity, if only for a moment. The inventor watches them, his smile softening into something almost wistful. Perhaps he's remembering his own childhood, or perhaps he's just realizing that sometimes the best inventions are the ones that bring laughter, not power. A new thought dawns on you as the spinner wobbles and arcs through the air. Maybe this is how toys were born, not with grand designs, but with simple, joyful accidents. Of course, not everyone would agree. Some ancient scholars would wrinkle their noses at the idea of play for play's sake. In their scrolls, they'd write about the virtues of discipline and study, conveniently ignoring the quiet, vital spark of curiosity that toys ignite. The children continue to spin and toss and shriek with glee, the bamboo copters whirring and clattering around the room. You watch one particularly ambitious launch that arcs high and lodges itself in the rafters. The boy who launched it looks up, sheepish, but the inventor only laughs, a deep, rumbling sound that fills the small space. Eventually, the children tire, their energy spent. They gather the spinners in their arms, bow politely, as they've been taught, and scamper back into the night, their laughter trailing behind them like a kite's tail. The workshop feels quieter now, the fires glow lower, the air a bit heavier. The inventor sighs, stretching his back until it pops audibly. He gives you a look, a little nod that says, "Did you see that too?" You nod back. "Oh yes. You saw it." Outside, a gentle breeze carries the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. Somewhere nearby, a night bird calls out, its song a soft, mournful note against the hush. You listen, lulled by the stillness, as the inventor leans over the table and spins the last remaining bamboo copter one more time. It lifts, just a little, before drifting down, settling softly like a falling leaf. The workshop, once alive with the children's shrieks and clattering bamboo, now hums with a slower, deeper kind of energy. The inventor sits in his chair, chin resting on his palm, watching the dying embers of the fire. You can tell he's not really looking at the fire, he's looking somewhere beyond it, where thoughts tangle and dreams stretch. Outside, the village has fallen into its quiet routines. The last few market stalls have been packed away. The dogs, finally tired, have curled themselves into tight little knots to sleep. You hear only the occasional creak of wood as the night air shifts the buildings around you. It's the perfect background for thinking too much about very small things. Inside the workshop, the bamboo copter sits where the children left it, still faintly gleaming in the firelight. It's funny how this little thing, thrown together from scraps, feels more important now than anything else in the room. Word spreads quickly in small places. The children, no doubt, will tell their families about the strange man with the flying toy. You imagine the parents' reactions, some amused, some irritated, most pretending not to care even as they sneak curious glances toward the inventor's door tomorrow. You sit back against a crooked shelf, careful not to disturb the precarious stacks of half-finished ideas. It occurs to you that while the great philosophers debate the nature of reality, and the ministers squabble over taxes and harvests, here, in this tiny, dusty workshop, something equally world-changing has quietly taken flight. You wonder, not for the first time, why the simplest things often carry the greatest weight. Historians still argue whether this little bamboo spinner influenced the later wonders of the ancient world. Some believe it was passed from village to village, adapted and refined by curious hands until it became more than a toy, maybe even a tool for studying air currents, or a teaching aid for young scholars learning about balance and motion. Others scoff at the idea, waving it away as coincidence or later invention. After all, it's just a toy, they say. How important could it really be? You and the inventor know better. He leans forward, grabbing a small knife and a fresh bamboo strip. His movements are slower now, more deliberate, as he starts carving thin, precise lines into the blade's surface. You watch closely. He's not just tinkering anymore, he's refining. Improving. He's thinking about how to make it stronger, lighter, faster. The cat, now fully awake, watches too, tail flicking lazily. It seems unimpressed by the whole affair, but then again, cats are known for their appreciation of human innovation. The inventor places the finished blade on the table and grabs another. His focus is complete, the rest of the world melting away. You admire the way his hands move, quick, efficient, confident. Each adjustment is small but significant. A slightly sharper edge here, a tighter binding there. He's not rushing. There's no deadline, no client demanding results, no emperor breathing down his neck. Just the slow, methodical pursuit of better. This, you realize, is what real invention looks like. 1,000 tiny decisions, 1,000,000 small failures, and the stubborn refusal to quit. The textbooks will make it sound grand, maybe even inevitable, but sitting here, you know the truth is messy and much, much slower. He finishes another prototype and tests it. The spinner lifts, arcs, and falls, a bit higher, a bit smoother. He grins, satisfied. The fire sputters as it burns down to the last few coals. Shadows shift across the walls, dancing in time with the flickering light. The inventor leans back, stretching his arms overhead until his joints crack like dry twigs. You glance at the pile of earlier attempts, crooked spinners, snapped shafts, frayed strings. Failures, all of them. And yet, without each one, tonight's small success wouldn't have been possible. The inventor rubs his eyes and stands, moving stiffly toward a shelf crowded with small jars. He picks one, something oily and pungent, and begins to rub it into the bamboo blades, his hands glistening in the low light. A simple way to protect the wood, make it last a little longer. Outside, a breeze stirs the trees, setting off a soft chorus of rustling leaves. The night feels endless, stretching out beyond the village into a sea of darkness. The inventor places the finished bamboo copter carefully on the table, gives it one last spin. It lifts, spins higher than before, and lands with a gentle thunk. He chuckles, then shakes his head as if to say, "Good enough for now." You smile to yourself. It's not a chariot to the stars, or a ship that sails the clouds. It's just a toy, a beautiful, accidental toy. But sometimes, that's where all the best stories begin. Morning sneaks up on the village with a gray, gentle kind of light. No trumpets, no fanfare, just a slow, inevitable brightening of the horizon, as if the sky itself is stretching after a long nap. You blink against the new light as the inventor snores lightly in his chair, his head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, mouth slightly open. One slipper has fallen off. His cat, ever opportunistic, is curled up in the vacated spot, purring in small, satisfied bursts. You sit quietly, watching dust motes drift lazily through the sunbeams slicing into the workshop. The bamboo copter lies where it landed last night, a quiet relic of a secret triumph. You wonder if the inventor will even remember the success when he wakes up, or if he'll dismiss it as another half-dreamed experiment. But you don't have long to wonder. The workshop door creaks open without warning, and a young boy peeks inside, one of last night's giggling trio. His eyes widen when he sees the bamboo copter lying there unattended. He tiptoes across the room, every movement exaggeratedly careful, as if worried he might wake a dragon rather than a sleeping man. You watch, amused, as the boy scoops up the spinner and cradles it like treasure. He examines it closely, fingers tracing the smooth bamboo blades, the careful twist of string. After a moment, he presses his palms together and gives it a spin. The toy lifts, wobbles, and drifts down again, landing softly on the dirt floor. The boy's grin is immediate and wide. He tries again, this time getting it a little higher. And just like that, you realize, the toy has slipped free from its maker's hands. It belongs to the world now, or at least to the children of the village. The boy spins it a few more times, then tucks it carefully into his tunic, like a sacred object. He glances once more at the snoring inventor, then bolts for the door, disappearing into the brightening morning with his prize. You sit back, smiling. There it is, the first flight of wonder passing from one pair of hands to another. Historians still argue whether these early toys were really appreciated by the adults of the time. Some insist that play was seen as vital to a child's education, a way to build dexterity and wit. Others claim toys were frivolous, tolerated at best and scorned at worst. Evidence is, as always, patchy at best. Ancient paintings and scrolls depict children at play, but rarely mention the toys themselves. Like now, the true treasures slip through the cracks of recorded history. You hear shouts outside, playful, competitive, as more children gather. The boy has shown them his find, and soon they're spinning the bamboo copter in a contest to see who can send it the highest, the longest, the furthest. You can almost hear the rules being invented on the spot, the rapid escalation of play that adults will later call structured games. Inside the workshop, the inventor stirs, groaning as he shifts in his chair. He blinks blearily at the door, then at the empty spot where the bamboo copter had rested. You see the brief flicker of confusion cross his face, but then he hears the children's laughter and nods slowly to himself. No anger, no disappointment, just quiet understanding. He stands, stretching until his joints crack, and wanders over to the work table. His hands move with the muscle memory of a man who's done the same thing 1,000 times, gathering bamboo, sharpening a knife, slicing thin strips with practiced ease. You realize he's starting again, not to replace what was taken, but to make more. There's something beautiful about that, isn't there? The idea that an invention isn't just a single moment but a ripple that keeps moving outward. The inventor doesn't hoard his creation or jealously guard it from eager hands. He sends it spinning into the world, trusting it to find new homes, new joys. As he works, the sounds of the village waking up filter in. Vendors shouting about fresh fish and rice. The clang of pots and pans. A rooster, impressively off-key, greeting the day. Life resumes, indifferent to the tiny revolution happening just outside the workshop door. The inventor finishes another bamboo copter and spins it experimentally. It lifts, dances, and falls, just as it should. Satisfied, he sets it aside and begins another. You settle back, content to watch. Here, in this forgotten corner of the world, in a room that smells faintly of wood smoke and invention, the first toy has taken flight, and with it, perhaps, the first spark of a much larger fire. Because isn't that how all great things begin? Not with a shout, but with a whisper. Not with conquest, but with play. You shift on the hard-packed floor, watching as the morning stretches its fingers further into the workshop. The inventor hums softly under his breath, a tuneless melody, the kind that drifts in without thinking and lingers long after. His knife flicks deftly through the bamboo, shaving and shaping, refining with the patience only stubborn hope can summon. A small pile of new bamboo copters grows beside him. Each one is slightly different, some with longer blades, others with tighter strings. Tiny adjustments, subtle experiments. He isn't content with last night's success. No, he's chasing something just out of reach, a perfect balance, a cleaner spin, a longer flight. Outside, the children's laughter rises and falls like waves, a rhythm of pure, unfiltered delight. You sneak a glance out the door and see them, a tangle of arms and legs and bright eyes, launching their precious toys skyward. Every now and then, one flies a little higher than the others, eliciting cheers and a flurry of spinning palms trying to replicate the feat. And it hits you, the invention isn't in here anymore. It's out there, where it belongs, multiplied and alive. Word of the bamboo copter spreads quickly. By mid-morning, a small crowd gathers near the workshop. Some are parents, peering over the heads of their children with bemused expressions. Others are curious passers-by drawn in by the commotion. There's a butcher, a potter, even a weary old scholar who squints disapprovingly at the spectacle but doesn't leave. The inventor finally looks up from his work and notices the gathering. He blinks, surprised, and then does something that cements him in your mind forever. He stands up, brushes the bamboo dust from his robes, and walks to the door, holding a freshly made spinner in each hand. Without a word, he offers them out to the nearest children. They accept with wide eyes and careful hands, as if being entrusted with royal treasures. And just like that, a new round of spinning and soaring begins. The adults watch, some shaking their heads, others smiling in spite of themselves. A few try their own hands at spinning the toy, palms clumsy and laughter reluctant at first, but growing freer with each attempt. You wonder if they realize they're witnessing a tiny shift in the fabric of their world. Probably not. Most revolutions start small and stay invisible until hindsight blows the dust away. Historians still argue whether this humble moment ever made it into the records. Some claim there are scrolls, long lost and crumbling, that mention flying toys amusing the court in later dynasties. Others dismiss it entirely, folklore, they sniff, with a condescending wave. But here, now, none of that matters. The children laugh. The toys spin. The inventor smiles his crooked, quiet smile. And something in the air feels different. You watch as the inventor steps back inside, the corners of his eyes crinkling with satisfaction. He picks up another strip of bamboo, running his fingers along its grain, testing its strength. His movements are slower now, less urgent, as if savoring the simple act of creation. The fire has long since gone cold, but the room is warm with morning light and the low buzz of quiet industry. You can't help but think, isn't this what legacy really is? Not grand statues or gold-filled tombs, but a small, stubborn joy passed from hand to hand, a whisper that becomes a song sung in different voices across generations. The cat stretches, yawns with impressive indifference, and jumps down from its perch, winding itself around the inventor's legs. He chuckles, reaching down to scratch its head. It's a picture you wish you could capture forever. The tinkerer, the cat, the scattered bamboo, the light, and just outside, a world unknowingly changed. You shift your weight again and settle in. The day is young, the work is steady, and the air is full of wonder. Sometimes, the first steps toward something grand are so quiet, so unassuming, that even the dreamer who takes them has no idea where the road will lead. But you do. You've seen the first spin of wonder, and it's only just beginning. The sun climbs higher, soaking the village in a hazy, golden light. The dust in the streets kicks up under the feet of children racing from house to house, each proudly clutching a bamboo copter, spinning and laughing in bursts so pure it makes your chest ache a little. Inside the workshop, the inventor works steadily, ignoring the rising heat. Sweat beads on his forehead, but he doesn't wipe it away. Instead, he leans closer to his work, tongue poking out slightly in concentration as he threads a tighter, finer string around the center shaft of his latest model. You lean closer too, curious. This one looks different, thinner blades, a narrower shaft. It's clear he's not just copying the first successful design. He's experimenting, refining. The first spin of wonder was enough to delight, but now he's chasing consistency, repeatability. This is how invention evolves, not with a single leap but with careful, methodical steps. Outside, a pair of younger children are attempting to launch their bamboo copters at once, seeing which can stay aloft longer. Their laughter spills into the workshop, and you catch the faint hint of an argument brewing over whether the launch technique or the copter itself deserves the credit. You smile to yourself. Historians still argue much the same way today. Was it the ingenuity of the invention, or the cleverness of the user, that changed history? No one can quite agree. And no one ever will. The inventor finishes winding the string and sets the new spinner aside to dry. He leans back, stretches, and for the first time this morning, notices the crowd has grown larger. Among the villagers now stand a few men in finer robes, local scholars, judges, maybe even an official or two. They pretend to be disinterested, arms crossed, expressions neutral. But their eyes betray them, flicking again and again toward the spinning toys and the excited children. The inventor, no fool, wipes his hands on his robe and steps outside. He offers a polite bow, and after a moment's hesitation, the robed men bow back. One of them, a man with a high forehead and ink-stained fingers, clears his throat and steps forward. "What is this device?" he asks, voice formal but tinged with curiosity he can't quite mask. The inventor smiles modestly and picks up one of the better copters from the ground. He places it carefully in his palms, gives it a sharp spin, and sends it spiraling into the air. It rises higher than any before it, catching the sunlight as it spins and earning an audible gasp from a few onlookers. When it finally settles back to earth, the scholar crouches to examine it more closely. He runs his fingers along the bamboo, inspecting the craftsmanship. "A toy?" he asks, a bit too sharply, as if the word offends him. The inventor shrugs. "Perhaps," he says, voice mild. "Or a demonstration of flight." The scholar straightens, clearly mulling that over. You can almost hear the gears turning in his head. If it's a toy, it's a frivolity. If it's a demonstration of flight, well, that might have more weight in the scrolls and courts that matter. Historians still debate whether toys were taken seriously in ancient times. Some records suggest that play was considered essential for teaching strategy and dexterity, Others imply that anything not directly contributing to labor or warfare was dismissed as idle nonsense. As always, the truth probably falls somewhere in the middle. The scholar strokes his thin beard thoughtfully, then murmurs something to the official beside him. After a moment, he reaches into the folds of his robe and pulls out a small silk pouch, heavy with coins. He offers it to the inventor. The inventor blinks, surprised, but takes it with a respectful bow. The crowd murmurs, some in admiration, others in envy. The scholar waves a hand, and one of his attendants carefully gathers several of the bamboo copters, wrapping them in cloth with surprising gentleness. The official nods once, sharply, and the group turns to leave, their prize secured. You watch them go, their robes fluttering in the dust, their heads bent together in urgent conversation. You wonder where those bamboo copters will end up. In a scholar's study? A noble child's playroom? Maybe even on a merchant's ship, carried to distant shores where the idea will take root and grow into something even bigger. The inventor watches them leave too, his expression unreadable. He weighs the pouch in his hand, then tucks it away with a shrug. No grand celebration, no triumphant fist-pumping. Just quiet acceptance. You get the feeling he knows that the real prize isn't the coins, or even the recognition. It's the ripple he's started, the way a simple twist of bamboo and string has caught the wind and started to fly, not just in the air, but through time. He turns back to his work table, picks up another bamboo strip, and sets to carving. Outside, the children spin and laugh and argue about technique, utterly unaware that history, their history, is already spinning too. The afternoon settles in heavy and slow, like a warm blanket draped over the village. Cicadas whine from the trees beyond the workshop, their lazy chorus stretching endlessly. You shift in the growing heat, but the inventor hardly seems to notice. His hands are busy, his mind, busier. He's moved on to a new problem, you can tell by the way he frowns slightly, lips pressed together. The bamboo copter, for all its wonder, is delicate. One misstep, one overly eager spin, and the thing splinters or twists beyond repair. Fine for a child's plaything, maybe, but not for something more durable. So, he tests materials. He swaps the bamboo for thin slats of wood, slicing and sanding carefully. He tries string made from different fibers, hemp, silk, even horsehair. He dips the blades in oil and wax, hoping for strength without too much weight. It's trial and error, mostly error. Some spinners fly lopsided, others shudder and drop like startled birds. One promising attempt launches spectacularly, and then promptly shatters against a ceiling beam with a sharp crack that startles the cat clean off the chair. The inventor just laughs, a low, dry chuckle, and picks up the pieces to examine them. This is the real work, you realize. Not the grand discovery, not the first lift into air, but the slog that comes after, iteration, adjustment, failure, and persistence. The unglamorous, unrecorded grind that historians often skip over in their rush to get to the good parts. And speaking of historians, they still argue over whether these early inventions were purely the domain of the scholar gentry or if commoners had a hand in innovation too. Official records, written by scholars themselves, tend to downplay the role of humble tinkerers like this man. After all, it's hard to fit bamboo toys into grand narratives about dynasties and power struggles. But you and the inventor know the truth, don't you? He spins a new model. It lifts, smooth, steady, almost elegant, and hovers for a moment before gliding down on a slow, spiraling descent. He watches it fall, nods once, and sets it aside. Outside, the mood has shifted. The crowd has thinned, the scholars have disappeared, likely off to write hurried notes about the curious device. Only a few children remain, practicing their spins with stubborn determination. One boy, smaller than the rest, with a mop of wild hair, catches your eye. He's not the fastest or the strongest, but his bamboo copter stays aloft longer than any other. He studies it closely between launches, adjusting the string, tweaking the blade angles. You smile. Another tinkerer in the making. The inventor notices too. He steps outside, crouches beside the boy, and offers a few quiet words of advice. The boy listens intently, nodding along. Then, with a serious expression, he spins the copter sharply. It shoots higher than before, catching a gust of wind and floating far down the street, chased by delighted shrieks. The inventor laughs and ruffles the boy's hair before standing and dusting off his knees. You watch this quiet moment and think, this is how the future is built. Not with declarations or proclamations, but with patient hands, curious minds, and small shared victories. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows that stretch across the village. The day is winding down, but the inventor shows no sign of stopping. He returns to his bench, tests a new shaft made from a strip of bamboo reinforced with a silk thread core. Stronger, lighter, clever. He spins it, and you hold your breath. The bamboo copter lifts, smooth, graceful, and stays aloft longer than any before it. It catches the last rays of the setting sun, gleaming like a living thing, before drifting down in a perfect spiral. Success. He catches it in one hand, inspecting it with a craftsman's satisfaction. It's not just a toy anymore. It's a marvel. You can't help but feel a little thrill. Right here, in this humble workshop, under the indifferent gaze of the setting sun, the seeds of flight have been sown. Maybe the scholars will dismiss it. Maybe the courts will ignore it. Maybe his name will be lost to history, blurred and misspelled and eventually forgotten. But the toy, the idea, will endure. The inventor places the new spinner carefully on the bench, beside the others. Then, without ceremony, he sits back, wipes his hands on his robe, and smiles, a quiet, knowing smile that seems to say, let's see where this goes. And you smile too, because you already know. The wind shifts, stirring the dust, lifting the scent of bamboo shavings and old smoke. The future, it seems, is already spinning just above your head. The village settles into that golden hush that comes just before dusk, when even the most restless creatures pause. The marketplace is a ghost of itself, stalls stripped down to their bones, the laughter of children now distant and softened by the evening air. You sit quietly, absorbing the thick stillness, as the inventor gently stacks his new bamboo copters on the work table, each one a testament to stubbornness and idle curiosity. And then, predictably, things get messy. A gaggle of merchants, fresh from an afternoon of wine and boastful trading, stumble down the dusty street. Their voices are too loud, their steps too wide. They spot the children first, still tossing their bamboo copters skyward, and, as adults full of pride and boredom are prone to do, decide to intervene. One merchant, round as a dumpling and twice as slippery, lumbers over. He plucks a spinner from a child's hands with mock seriousness, turns it over, snorts, and, without so much as a glance toward the inventor's doorway, declares it a useless trinket. Bah, he says, tossing it back. What's it good for? Spinning wood in the air? Better to spin silk or silver into profit. The children recoil, the mood deflating like a punctured gourd. The inventor watches from his doorway, one eyebrow raised, but he says nothing. You lean forward, curious to see what will happen next. Another merchant, this one tall and thin, with a nose sharp enough to cut bamboo, squints at the spinner with exaggerated disdain. Toys, he mutters. Distractions. No better than kites for lazy boys. Historians still argue whether early toys faced societal scorn. Some records suggest that anything not tied to agriculture, commerce, or military strength was viewed with suspicion. Others hint that play was tolerated, even valued, so long as it built skills useful to adulthood. As always, history's truth is a slippery, wriggling thing. The children stand in awkward silence, fidgeting. The boy with the wild hair holds his bamboo copter close, knuckles wide around the shaft. The inventor steps forward at last, his face unreadable. Without a word, he picks up the latest, strongest spinner from his bench. He steps into the dusty street, holding it lightly between his palms, and gives it a single, practiced spin. The bamboo copter launches into the air, higher, steadier, more gracefully than ever before. It catches a breeze and hovers, gliding along the street in a long, lazy arc. The merchants fall silent, heads tilting back to watch it float, turning slow circles against the deepening blue of the sky. The spinner drifts back down and lands softly, the blades still whispering against the air. The tall merchant grunts. A clever trick. The round merchant shrugs. Still not worth much. The inventor smiles, a small, secret thing, and steps back without replying. He doesn't need to argue. The toy speaks for itself. You wonder if he even cares about their opinions. Probably not. You've noticed that true inventors aren't driven by praise or scorn. They're propelled by the mystery of the thing itself, by the unscratchable itch of curiosity. The merchants grumble, shuffle, and eventually move on, their self-importance trailing behind them like the tails of scolded dogs. The children, once they're safely out of earshot, erupt into giggles. They gather up their bamboo copters and resume their play, their launches now more determined, their laughter sharper and freer. The boy with the wild hair catches the inventor's eye and offers a shy grin. The inventor returns it with a nod, not approval, not encouragement, just a simple, mutual understanding. You watch the spinner rise again and think about all the skeptics through history, the ones who laughed at the first hot air balloons, the first clunky airplanes, the first clattering automobiles. All of them waving dismissively at what they couldn't yet imagine. This little bamboo copter, laughed at today, will one day be linked to things unimaginable: flight, exploration, entire industries born from the stubborn insistence that the sky doesn't belong just to the birds. The inventor, unbothered, returns to his bench. The sun slips lower, bleeding the last gold from the sky, and shadows stretch long and thin across the street. Inside, the inventor picks up another strip of bamboo, his knife flashing briefly in the last light. He works methodically, lost in thought, as outside the children spin and spin and spin, their toys rising like tiny dreams into the coming night. And you sit there, quietly witnessing the slow, stubborn birth of wonder. Night folds itself gently around the village, a velvet sky dusted with timid stars. Lamps flicker to life one by one, casting soft, honeyed circles of light along the narrow, winding streets. You listen to the evening breathe, the low murmur of families settling in, the creak of shutters being drawn closed, the occasional bark of a dog chasing unseen ghosts. Inside the workshop, the inventor lights a small oil lamp, its flame sputtering before settling into a steady glow. Shadows leap and shiver on the walls, stretching and shrinking as he moves. He works slower now, not out of weariness, but because there's no need to rush. The world outside has spun itself into quiet, leaving him alone with his thoughts and his bamboo. The latest bamboo copter sits on the table, a feather-light thing with thinner blades and a tighter coil of string. He picks it up, turns it over in his hands, testing its balance with the same care you might give to a bird too fragile for flight. He spins it once, a lazy, unhurried motion, and watches it lift, shimmering briefly in the lamplight before settling back down. A nod of approval follows. It's easy to imagine he's done for the night. But then, with the same quiet stubbornness that has carried him through countless failures, he reaches for another strip of bamboo. Historians still argue whether the ancient inventors of simple machines, levers, pulleys, spinning tops, thought of themselves as innovators. Most likely, they didn't. Most likely, they simply did. They carved, spun, tested, adjusted. The act of invention wasn't some grand affair, it was a way of life, as natural as breathing, as constant as the rising sun. And here, in this dim little workshop, that tradition continues, unnoticed by kings or scholars. Outside, the village sleeps. The children have long since tumbled into their beds, the day's adventures still spinning in their dreams. The bamboo copters, a few cracked, a few clutched tightly in small fists, rest beside mats and low wooden beds, waiting for morning's first light and another eager spin. You imagine the boy with the wild hair lying awake, staring at the low ceiling, already planning new ways to launch his spinner higher. It's not just a toy to him anymore, it's a question waiting to be answered. The inventor sets aside the freshly carved blades and moves to a small, battered chest in the corner of the room. He lifts the lid, revealing a clutter of half-forgotten tools, scraps of fabric, coils of wire, old projects that never quite found their wings. From the mess, he pulls out a sheet of paper, brittle, yellowed, covered in sketches. You lean closer. Among the rough drawings, you recognize early attempts at flight, crude wings, boxy contraptions with flapping arms, even a drawing that looks suspiciously like a giant bamboo copter scaled up to absurd proportions. You grin. Ambition has always been humanity's favorite bedtime story. He studies the page, tapping a finger thoughtfully against one design. It's wild, improbable, the sort of thing the court scholars would dismiss with a sniff and a roll of the eyes. But you can see the faint gleam in his own, a dangerous, exhilarating mix of curiosity and audacity. Maybe, just maybe, this little toy isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's just the beginning. Of course, the scholar officials would scoff. They would argue about the limits of human ingenuity, about the laws of nature, about proper decorum. Men belong on the ground, they would say. The heavens are not our domain. But tell that to the children dreaming of flight. The inventor folds the paper carefully, sets it aside, and returns to his bench. He lifts the newest spinner, gives it a slow, deliberate twist, and watch as it sails upward in the warm lamplight. It spins, hovers, drifts, and falls, a small, beautiful rebellion against gravity, against expectation, against the slow erosion of imagination. You sit there, still as the night itself, as the bamboo copter spins and falls again and again, each flight a quiet promise. Beyond the village, beyond the hills, beyond even the reach of the stars, the future waits, patient, expectant, spinning gently in the dark. The night deepens, rich and dark, wrapping the village in a cocoon of quiet. A breeze slips through the cracks in the workshop walls, carrying with it the cool scent of damp earth and distant water. The oil lamp sputters briefly, casting a sudden, jittery dance of shadows before settling down again. You watch as the inventor, seemingly impervious to the hour, gathers the day's work, a small fleet of bamboo copters, and arranges them carefully on the table. Each is slightly different, subtle experiments in blade width, shaft length, string tension. None of them perfect, but all of them closer to something he can almost see, almost touch. Outside, the occasional murmur of the sleeping village drifts in. A snore here, a creaking door there. You can't help but smile at the contrast, the world blissfully unconscious while, inside this cramped little room, quiet revolutions continue. The inventor rubs his neck, stretching out the stiffness of hours spent hunched over his work. Then, almost absent-mindedly, he picks up one of the newer copters and turns it over in his hands. His fingers move lightly over the bamboo blades, tracing their curve, feeling for imperfections. Historians still argue whether this kind of late-night tinkering was common among inventors of the ancient world. Some point to records of scholars burning midnight oil over scrolls and diagrams. Others believe most artisans worked only during the daylight, their lives too bound by practical needs to indulge in after-hours curiosity. But here you are, watching proof to the contrary, a man working not for coin or command, but for the sheer joy of it, for the silent, stubborn thrill of asking what if and chasing it until the stars grow tired. The cat, now awake and curious again, leaps onto the table. It sniffs at the nearest spinner, then bats it gently with a paw. The toy skitters across the wood, spinning wildly before tumbling to the floor. The inventor chuckles softly, a low rumble in his throat. He picks up the fallen spinner, inspects it for damage, then spins it once more between his palms. The blades were slicing the lamplight, before floating back down. Not perfect. Not yet, but better. You glance at the paper he unfolded earlier, the one covered in improbable flying machines. He hasn't put it away. It sits just within reach, as if daring him to dream bigger. He rubs his chin thoughtfully, then dips a brush into ink and adds a few quick strokes to the paper, adjustments to the blades, notes about weight distribution, sketches of twisted string mechanisms. His handwriting is hurried but legible, the ink still wet and glistening in the lamp's glow. Outside, the wind picks up slightly, rattling a loose shutter. The night is restless, shifting, as if sensing the quiet churn of new ideas being born. You settle deeper into your spot, the floor cool beneath you, the air carrying a faint tang of bamboo and smoke. The moment feels suspended, weightless, as if the workshop itself has been plucked out of time and placed gently on the edge of something vast and unknown. And you realize, this is it. This is the moment before history takes notice. Before the bamboo copter becomes more than a toy, before the idea of flight plants itself stubbornly in the human mind and refuses to let go. The inventor spins another copter. It lifts, higher this time, catches a stray draft from the cracked window, and floats longer, steadier, more gracefully than any before. He watches it with a small, satisfied smile, then carefully sets it aside. You can almost see the future unfurling from that small spiral of flight, kites catching the wind, paper lanterns drifting upward, the first daring leaps of manned flight centuries later. It all starts here. With bamboo. With string. With stubbornness. The inventor leans back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. He looks tired now, not just physically, but in that bone-deep way that comes from carrying an idea too big for one night. Still, he lingers. Still, he dreams. Outside, the stars blaze brighter against the ink-black sky. Inside, the workshop hums with the quiet pulse of possibility. You sit still, barely breathing, as the latest bamboo copter spins once more into the thick night air, defying gravity, defying expectation, a toy, a marvel, a whisper of the future. Morning drapes itself lightly over the village again, the air cool and promising. Roosters crow off-key, dogs stir from their beds, and somewhere in the market, a vendor grumbles as he sets out baskets of yesterday's withered greens. Another ordinary day, by most accounts. But not here. Inside the inventor's workshop, there's a hush, not the hush of sleep, but the kind that hangs just before something stirs, something shifts. You watch as the inventor, bleary-eyed but determined, brushes the curls of bamboo shavings off his robe and studies the fruits of his labor. He doesn't look particularly triumphant, no chest thumping, no grand speeches, but there's a calm in him now, a quiet certainty you didn't see before. The cat watches too, tail flicking, as if it knows something's afoot. You both hear it at the same time, footsteps, many of them, hurried and purposeful, kicking up the dust outside. The inventor rises slowly and moves toward the door just as a cluster of figures appears, not the laughing children or skeptical merchants this time, but a group draped in rich silks and stern faces. Officials, scholars, attendants. At their center, a man in imperial robes steps forward. He's not ostentatious about it, his garb is tasteful, his expression carefully neutral, but there's no mistaking who he is. A low-ranking member of the imperial court, sent on behalf of someone who definitely does not want to leave the palace to chase rumors of spinning toys. You can almost hear the collective intake of breath from the villagers peeking around corners and over fences. This kind of attention doesn't happen often in places like this. The official clears his throat and speaks in a tone that suggests he's not used to being questioned. "We have heard curious accounts," he says, carefully, "of a device. A toy, perhaps. A mechanism. We wish to see it. It's not exactly a request." The inventor says nothing. He simply nods, turns back into the workshop, and retrieves one of the bamboo copters, not the fanciest, not the most delicate, just a well-balanced, reliable one. He steps outside and, without preamble, spins it sharply between his palms. The toy soars. It rises higher than ever before, spinning smooth and fast, catching the morning sun in flashes of golden light. It floats upward, turns lazily, and descends in a slow, graceful spiral that seems to defy the very idea of gravity. The official's eyes widen, just a fraction. He exchanges a glance with his scholars, who whisper furiously among themselves, scribbling quick notes on thin scraps of parchment. One of them steps forward, requesting, with a bow deeper than necessary, to examine the device. The inventor hands it over without hesitation. He watches patiently as the scholar turns it over, tugging gently at the blades, running a finger along the string, measuring angles with the practiced eye of someone who's seen too many complicated things fail because of one tiny overlooked flaw. Historians still argue whether this moment marked the toy's passage from village curiosity to diplomatic artifact. Some claim these officials brought it straight to the emperor's court, where it amused nobility and scholars alike. Others suggest it was dismissed as a peasant's folly, only surviving through oral tales and the stubbornness of children who refused to let it be forgotten. Either way, the seed had been planted. The scholar tests the spinner, mimicking the inventor's motion. The bamboo copter lifts, floats, not quite as high, not quite as steady, but enough to earn a ripple of impressed murmurs from the gathered crowd. The official nods slowly, thoughtfully. He gestures to an attendant, who steps forward with a lacquered box. The scholar carefully places the bamboo copter inside, and the box is snapped shut with a definitive click, a sound that feels heavier than it should. A few more formal words are exchanged, vague, official, non-committal. Promises to inform the court, to consider its implications. No guarantees, of course. The court never promises anything directly, but the meaning is clear. As the officials turn and make their way back through the village, heads held high, robes brushing the dusty ground, the inventor stands quietly at his door, watching them go. He's not smiling, not frowning, just observing, as if filing the entire scene away for later. You sit back, thoughtful. Because here's the thing, it doesn't really matter what the officials decide. Whether they embrace it or dismiss it, whether they write about it or forget it entirely. The bamboo copter exists now, not just here, but elsewhere, carried on whispers in games and curious hands. You watch the cat wind around the inventor's ankles, purring like a small, satisfied machine. The inventor picks it up absently, scratches behind its ears, and murmurs something you can't quite catch. The village slowly resumes its hum, vendors hawking wares, children darting through the streets, neighbors gathering to gossip about the morning's spectacle. Inside the workshop, the inventor returns to his bench, where a fresh strip of bamboo awaits. Because the work isn't finished. It never really is. The officials may have carried off one bamboo copter like a captured bird in a lacquered box, but the spirit of the thing stays behind, light as air, stubborn as a weed. The village, once cautious and slow to notice the strange invention, now hums with a quiet excitement. Children gather in small, squabbling groups, each clutching some version of the toy, showing off, tweaking designs, competing to see whose will fly the highest or spin the longest. You watch as a few particularly bold ones tie bells to their spinners, giggling at the tinkling sound that follows each dizzying flight. The inventor sits back in his creaky chair, arms crossed, watching them with an expression somewhere between amusement and pride. He says nothing, but you catch the faintest curve of a smile on his lips, the kind that comes not from approval, but from recognition. He's seen the spark take hold. It no longer belongs to him alone. Inside the workshop, bamboo shavings litter the floor like drifts of golden snow. A pile of fresh materials sits ready on the table, thin slats, coils of string, blades already half-whittled. The work continues, but now it feels different. Lighter. Purposeful. As the day deepens, a traveler appears, a dusty figure leading a donkey laden with baskets and woven goods. He pauses, intrigued by the crowd of children and the strange, whirling toys clattering around their heads. His eyes narrow, assessing, calculating. He steps closer, and before long he's bartering with one of the bolder children, offering a length of dyed cloth in exchange for a bamboo copter. The child, after a whispered conference with her friends, agrees, the first unofficial trade deal struck with a nod and a grin. You watch, fascinated. The toy isn't just a curiosity now. It's becoming currency, culture, movement. Historians still argue whether this simple spinner directly influenced later innovations in mechanics. Some trace early helicopters, even basic aeronautical principles, back to these humble toys. Others insist the connection is tenuous at best, more myth than fact. But even the skeptics have to admit, ideas travel best when they're simple, when they're fun, when they catch on with the young and the restless. And that's exactly what's happening here. By nightfall, the traveler has packed several spinners away with his goods, and he sets off down the winding road out of the village, whistling tunelessly. You wonder where he's headed. A nearby town? A bustling city? Across rivers? Over mountains? It doesn't matter. The bamboo copter goes with him. The inventor watches him leave, eyes thoughtful, fingers drumming lightly on his workbench. He seems to be weighing something invisible in the air, not the loss of the toy itself, but the gaining of something larger, something he can't quite name yet. You glance at the children still playing in the dimming light, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. The spinners catch the last of the sun's glow, rising and falling in erratic, beautiful arcs. Inside, the inventor moves to the shelf where the old sketches are kept. He unfurls them again, laying them carefully across the table. His gaze lingers on the outlandish designs, wings broader than ships, spinning contraptions taller than trees. Dreams, mostly. Wild scribbles. But he studies them with the same steady patience he showed the first night you arrived. He dips his brush in fresh ink and begins to add new lines, refinements, corrections. His hand is sure now, the strokes deliberate. No longer guessing wildly in the dark, now, he's following a path, faint but certain, laid out by the whir of bamboo and the laughter of children. You realize you're witnessing something rare, the shift from accident to intention. The moment when a fluke becomes a goal, when a toy becomes a prototype. The cat, ever skeptical of grand endeavors, hops onto a nearby stool and begins a loud, theatrical grooming session. The inventor ignores it, eyes fixed on his new sketch. Outside, the stars prick through the darkening sky one by one, casual and indifferent. They've seen this before, countless times, small sparks catching fire in quiet corners of the world. And you? You sit back, hands resting on your knees, heart quiet with awe. Because you understand something even the inventor might not fully grasp yet. The bamboo copter isn't just a toy. It's a seed, carried on the breath of children, the ambition of travelers, the quiet stubbornness of dreamers. A whisper against the silence of the skies, promising that one day, the air will belong to more than just the birds. The inventor leans back, sets down his brush, and studies the page in front of him. A toy or a tool? A game or a gateway? Maybe, just maybe, both. The night deepens, folding the village into itself, but but sleep feels distant in the workshop. The oil lamp burns low, casting a soft halo that barely reaches the cluttered corners. You watch the inventor, still hunched over his new sketches, fingers stained with ink and thoughts spinning faster than his toys ever could. You sense it, that subtle click when an idea stops being a game and starts becoming a mission. The bamboo copter lies on the table beside him, unassuming, almost shy in its simplicity. And yet, it has cracked open the door to something bigger. His latest drawing shows a larger version, thicker blades, a stronger shaft, more elaborate string work. Not just a spinner, but a lifter, a carrier, an experiment. Historians still argue whether the bamboo copter can truly be called the ancestor of flight. Some are skeptical, insisting that real aviation didn't start until much later with silk kites, paper lanterns, and, eventually, the heavy, groaning hulks of the first gliders and airships. But others, the ones who understand that history is less about grand moments and more about the accumulation of small, stubborn dreams, see the clear through line from this simple toy to the sky itself. Outside, the last fires are doused, and the village falls silent except for the occasional hoot of an owl, the low rustle of a night breeze sliding through bamboo groves. The cat sleeps curled in a perfect spiral on the chair, unimpressed by history in the making. The inventor finally leans back, stretching until his joints pop like a drum roll in the stillness. He surveys his work, and for the first time, he frowns. Not in disappointment, no, this is the frown of someone confronting scale. It's one thing to make a toy fly. It's another to imagine lifting a man, a cargo, something weightier than a scrap of bamboo and string. You can almost hear the weight of it in his breath. He pushes the sketches aside for now and reaches for one of the simpler copters. With the easy grace of practice, he spins it between his palms. It lifts, hovers, dances. You watch the faint smile return to his face as it drifts down. A toy, yes, but a toy that carries within it the seed of impossible dreams. In the village square the next morning, the children will gather again. Their competitions will grow more elaborate. Who can spin two at once? Who can catch one midair without letting it touch the ground? Who can modify theirs to fly just a little longer? You can already imagine the future contests, the arguments about technique, the flashes of inspiration that will ripple out like pond waves. And maybe, just maybe, one of those children, years from now, will remember the bamboo copter when they study wind currents or build sails or sketch fantastical machines with wings. Ideas, after all, have a way of hiding in the corners of memory, only to burst forth when the moment is right. The inventor sighs and carefully places the bamboo copter back on the table. He snuffs the lamp, and the workshop falls into darkness, lit only by the faint silver glow slipping through the cracks in the walls. You sit there, listening to the soft rustle of his breathing, the occasional twitch of the sleeping cat. It's a strange thing, witnessing history. You expect it to be loud, triumphant, wrapped in trumpets and banners. But more often, it's like this, quiet, careful, slow. A man in a dark workshop, turning over a simple toy in his hand and dreaming of impossible things. The wind shifts outside, gentle and constant, as if urging the toy and the dream onward. And in that soft darkness, you realize something. The bamboo copter may be small, but it has already done what few inventions ever manage. It has made the air seem not just a mystery to ponder, but a space to reach for. It has made the impossible feel just a little more possible. It has made the sky, for the first time, feel within arm's length. Dawn arrives quietly, slipping fingers of light across the cracked walls of the workshop. The inventor stirs awake with a grunt, rubbing the sleep from his face. You remain still, half hidden in the corner, watching the slow return to movement. He stretches, joints cracking, and stands. His first gesture is not to the window or the door but to the table, to the bamboo copter lying exactly where he left it. He picks it up and gives it a slow, experimental spin. It hums upward, hovering briefly before descending with a soft flutter. Satisfied, he nods to himself. You can almost hear the thought forming in his mind. It's good, but it could be better. He goes to the water jar, splashes his face, and without even bothering with a meal, begins work again. The knife finds its familiar rhythm against the bamboo. Shavings curl and fall. His hands, stained and calloused, move swiftly, confidently. By midday, a new batch of spinners lines the table, variations on a theme, each a little different from the last. He tests them one by one, nodding, frowning, adjusting. Meanwhile, life in the village carries on, but not as it used to. Word of the toy, and the strange visit from the officials, has traveled. More children flock to the square, and even a few curious adults watch the flying toys with expressions somewhere between amusement and suspicion. You spot the boy with the wild hair again, spinning his bamboo copter with an intensity that suggests he's trying to will it higher through sheer determination. Around him, the other children cheer or groan at each attempt. It's no longer just play, it's practice. Historians still argue whether the bamboo copter influenced other technologies of the time. Some point to its appearance in later dynasties, when records mention flying toys made of feathers and paper, or to early sketches of rotational mechanisms that resemble, faintly, the copter's simple elegance. Others dismiss these links, claiming coincidence or cultural drift. But standing here, watching the children spin, launch, modify, and compete, you sense the truth that no parchment or scroll can fully capture. The idea has taken root. Inside the workshop, the inventor pauses to rest, sitting back in his chair and observing his latest batch of creations. He picks one up, thinner blades, a new, finer string, and studies it closely. With a careful spin, he sends it soaring higher than the others, smooth and unwavering. It's not perfect, not yet, but it's close. He sets it aside and pulls a folded scrap of paper from his robe. Unfurling it, you see new sketches, more ambitious than before. Not just bigger spinners, but frameworks for something larger, harnesses, extended blades, mechanisms that look suspiciously like the bones of a flying machine. You lean in, breathless. He's no longer content to spin toys. His mind has leapt ahead, chasing the dream that the bamboo copter hinted at, human flight. The cat yawns extravagantly from the corner, unimpressed as ever. But you can feel the shift in the room, subtle but electric. The inventor dips his brush in ink and begins adding notes to the sketch, calculations, diagrams, little arrows pointing to balance points and blade angles. His handwriting is cramped but steady, a map for a journey few would dare to attempt. You wonder if he knows how ahead of his time he is. Probably not. Dreamers rarely do. They simply follow the tug of their curiosity, heedless of the centuries it might take for the world to catch up. Outside, the boy with the wild hair lets out a whoop of triumph as his spinner hovers longer than any before it. The other children swarm him, demanding to know his secret. He grins and shrugs, then demonstrates, a slight twist to the blades, a sharper spin, a quicker release. He's not guarding his discovery, he's sharing it. Teaching. The inventor watches from the doorway, a small smile tugging at his lips. He says nothing, but you can see the pride in his eyes. Because he understands what most people don't. Ideas are meant to be given away, passed along like torches. A single spark is small and fragile, but when shared, it can light 1,000 fires. He turns back to his bench, rolling up the new sketches and tucking them carefully into a jar, safe from dust and meddling hands. Then, without a word, he picks up his knife and starts carving again, not because he expects fame or fortune, but because the work itself is worth doing. Because the bamboo still yields to his hands, and the sky still waits, patient and silent. You sit back, the scent of fresh-cut bamboo thick in the warm air, and you realize something. Even if the world forgets his name, even if no scroll or monument bears his likeness, this man has already left his mark. Every spin of a child's toy, every dream of flight, they all trace their roots back here, to this workshop, to these hands, to this quiet, stubborn pursuit of wonder. The days roll on, as they tend to do, slow and steady, until the rhythm of work and play becomes part of the very air. The bamboo copters are no longer a novelty in the village, they're a fixture, as expected as rice in the bowl and smoke from the chimneys. Children still gather daily, now refining their skills, modifying their toys with feathers, paint, bits of cloth tied to the blades to catch the wind differently. The small innovations ripple outward, each one a testament to the contagious nature of curiosity. The inventor watches it all quietly. He hasn't spoken much about what he's done, he hasn't needed to. Every child's laugh, every delighted shout as a copter spins higher than before, is a reward far richer than coins in a pouch. Inside the workshop, though, it's a different story. The simple bamboo copter isn't enough anymore. You can see it in the way he moves, more restless now, less content to merely reproduce what he's already mastered. His mind has leapt ahead again, chasing something bolder, something heavier than air and yet somehow meant to defeat it. He returns to the sketches, unrolling them late into the night, adding new layers of complexity. The latest drawings show large frames of bamboo and silk, clever windings of rope and spring mechanisms. Device is not meant to amuse children, device is meant to lift a person, to challenge the heavens themselves. Of course, there's skepticism. The village gossip has shifted. You catch fragments of conversation, murmurs about the inventor's strange new projects, warnings that he's tempting the spirits, that man was not meant to leave the earth. Fear disguised as wisdom, as it often is. Historians still argue whether fear or curiosity shaped more of human history. Did we cross oceans because we wanted to know what lay beyond, or because we were afraid to stay where we were? Did we build the first kites, the first wings, out of boldness or desperation? The inventor doesn't bother with such debates. He simply works. Today, you watch as he binds a larger frame of bamboo, delicate yet strong, a skeleton of a machine that looks like it could leap if only it were alive. He wraps the joints with soaked silk cords, tight and smooth, reinforcing the points where the structure might twist and snap. The cat sits on a shelf, tail flicking, unimpressed by the audacity of the project. Occasionally, the inventor steps back to assess his work, hands on his hips, head cocked to one side. You can see the calculations running behind his eyes, the quiet war between what he dreams and what the bamboo will allow. He tests a rotor, a much larger version of the toy's twin blades, spinning it slowly between his palms. It wobbles, unstable, and he frowns, adjusting the angles again. Over and over, he spins and adjusts, chasing the elusive harmony between lift and balance. Outside, the children play without a care, spinning their small toys into the bright afternoon air. But here, inside, something heavier stirs, the first rough draft of dreams too big for their era. You notice the jars by the work table are filled with more than just bamboo scraps now. There are coils of rope, twisted sinew, tiny clay weights, even folded leaves used to model airflow. Every object in the room has been conscripted into the service of flight. The inventor doesn't speak, but his silence is full of meaning. He knows this is foolishness, by most standards. He knows that if he ever actually builds a machine capable of carrying a man, it will terrify more people than it will inspire. But he keeps working anyway, because some ideas are too stubborn to die quietly. Even if no one remembers his name, and you have a sinking feeling history won't, the idea will survive. It has already taken wing, figuratively if not literally. It lives in the hands of the children, in the whispers of the villagers, in the sketches inked hastily on paper that will one day yellow and crumble but will never quite be forgotten. The sun sinks lower, and the inventor wipes sweat from his brow with the back of his sleeve. He steps back from the latest prototype, not finished but forming, and you see the gleam in his eyes, not triumph, not yet, but something fiercer, belief. Outside, a bamboo copter catches a lucky gust and spins higher than any before it, a brief silhouette against the setting sun. The inventor smiles at the sight, just barely. And you sit back, the air thick with the scent of bamboo and ink and dreams, knowing you were watching the quiet, invisible beginning of something that will one day be called inevitable, even though it started right here, with one man, one toy, and one refusal to accept the limits of the ground beneath his feet. As the days wear on, you notice a change in the way the village watches the inventor. Curiosity has curdled into something more cautious. Suspicion lingers in the air like smoke. Adults whisper behind cupped hands, glancing nervously toward the workshop. Children, though, remain blissfully unaware. They spin and launch their bamboo copters without a thought for the grumblings of their elders. Inside the workshop, the inventor hardly seems to notice. Or if he does, he simply doesn't care. His hands are full, his mind fuller still. The larger model is taking shape, a delicate frame of reinforced bamboo, its joints bound tightly with silk and sinew, the blades now large enough to cast long, skeletal shadows across the room when he spins them. He tests balance endlessly, adjusting the curvature of the blades, tinkering with counterweights made from stones wrapped in cloth. Every small success is met with a grunt of approval, every failure with a patient sigh and another quiet adjustment. You sit silently, watching. There's something sacred about this process, the single-minded pursuit of a dream no one else can yet see. The villagers' fear grows. You overhear one man muttering about angering the sky spirits, about how unnatural it is to challenge the heavens. A woman at the well clutches her child closer when she glimpses the outline of the contraption through the workshop window. Historians still argue whether such fears hindered or helped progress. Some claim that resistance slowed innovation, forcing ideas to lie dormant until the world was ready. Others believe fear is a crucible, sharpening determination, weeding out the half-hearted and leaving only the truly stubborn. The inventor? He simply builds. One evening, as the sun bruises the sky with streaks of purple and gold, a small group of elders gathers near the workshop door. Their robes are stiff with formality, their expressions carved from stone. They do not knock. They simply stand, a silent wall of disapproval. The inventor wipes his hands on his robe and steps outside. He bows politely, waiting. The eldest among them, a man whose face is more wrinkles than skin, clears his throat. His voice, when it comes, is thin but sharp. "What you build," he says, "is dangerous." The inventor says nothing. "You meddle with forces beyond our place. Man was not meant to leave the ground." Still, the inventor remains silent. "If you persist," the elder continues, "you will bring misfortune upon us all." There it is, the fear, laid bare. Not fear for the inventor, but for themselves, for the disruption of the fragile balance between what is known and what might be. The inventor bows again, lower this time, a gesture of respect. And without a word, he turns and walks back into the workshop, closing the door gently behind him. You expect him to pause, to waver. He does not. He returns to the work table, picks up his knife, and continues carving. The cat, sensing the tension, leaps onto a shelf and watches with narrowed eyes. The villagers drift away, their whispers following them like smoke, but you remain, rooted to the spot. Because you understand, the work must continue, even when the world frowns. Especially then. Inside, the inventor adjusts the blades once more, testing their alignment. He tries a new technique, twisting the blades slightly, not just flat but angled, to catch and carve through the air. He spins the prototype slowly between his palms. It doesn't lift yet, but it hums differently now, a deeper, more promising sound. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the loose shutters and sending leaves skittering across the packed dirt. The night settles heavy and watchful. You lean closer, feeling the charge in the air, the low, insistent thrum of something inevitable. Because here's the truth, history does not always favor the cautious. It favors the stubborn, the foolish, the dreamers who keep spinning their impossible toys even when the world tells them to stop. The inventor places the new prototype carefully on the table, stepping back to study it in the lamplight. His face is calm, his eyes clear. Tomorrow, he will test it. Tomorrow, he will try to lift not just bamboo, not just dreams, but himself, or at least the idea of himself, into the waiting sky. And if he fails? Well, failure is just another word for unfinished business. The dawn breaks over the village with a shy, tentative light, brushing the rooftops with soft pink and gold. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of wet earth and blooming jasmine. You breathe it in deeply as you settle into your familiar spot, ready to witness the next step in this quiet saga of flight and stubbornness. Inside the workshop, the inventor moves with a purpose you haven't seen before. His eyes are sharp, his hands steady despite the tension lurking beneath his calm exterior. The larger contraption, the one he's been building piece by piece, stands ready in the corner. Its bamboo frame towers awkwardly, blades wide and curved, silk bindings taut. He picks up the prototype, testing its weight with a careful lift. The balance feels right, but the question remains, will it lift off the ground? Outside, children gather once more, their laughter ringing like bells. They watch with wide eyes, sensing something different in the air today. Even the cat, usually indifferent, perches on a windowsill, tail twitching in anticipation. The inventor steps outside, carrying the fragile machine like a newborn bird. He sets it down gently on a cleared patch of earth, the ground still damp from last night's rain. With a deep breath, he grasps the handles and begins to spin the rotors. The bamboo blades whirl faster and faster, slicing through the air with a rising hum. You feel the vibration in your chest, a rhythm older than words. And then, a miracle, or something close enough to call it that, the machine lifts. Not high, not far, but enough. Enough to make the children gasp and clap, to make the elders pause in their walks, to make the cat jump down in startled awe. The bamboo copter hovers briefly, spinning like a living thing, before settling back down in a soft spiral. The inventor exhales, a long, slow breath. He smiles, not triumphantly, but quietly, as one who knows this is just the beginning. Historians still debate the true significance of these early flights. Some say they were mere curiosities, forgotten and rediscovered centuries later. Others argue they were the first sparks that ignited the human obsession with the sky. You know better. You've seen the first flicker of that obsession here, in a dusty workshop, in the hands of a man who refused to stop spinning his dreams. As the sun rises higher, the village awakens fully. The children rush forward, peppering the inventor with questions and eager hands reaching for the machine. He laughs, the sound warm and real, and begins to teach them the secrets of balance, tension, and motion. The cat weaves through their legs, purring approval. Outside, the wind carries the laughter and the faint hum of spinning blades, drifting upward like a promise. And you realize, the sky is no longer just a ceiling. It is a frontier, a canvas, a place for wonder. All because of a simple toy, spun with patience and stubborn hope. The sun sets softly over the village, bathing everything in a warm, golden glow. The day's heat fades into a cool embrace, and shadows stretch long across the earth. You settle into the fading light, the gentle hum of evening folding around you like a whispered lullaby. Inside the workshop, the inventor sits quietly, hands resting on his knees. The bamboo copter rests nearby, its blades still catching the last flickers of sunlight. There's a peacefulness in the air, the kind that comes after a day of hard work, of small victories and quiet hope. You watch as he closes his eyes briefly, breathing deep. The cat curls at his feet, purring softly. Outside, the village slows, windows glow with candlelight, and the distant song of a night bird drifts in. It's a moment of calm before the world turns again. You think back to the first night you arrived here, to the simple spinner and the stubborn hands that brought it to life, to the laughter of children, the scorn of merchants, the cautious interest of officials, to the sketches that dared to dream beyond the sky. This story, the story of a man, a toy, and the quiet rebellion against gravity, is more than just a chapter in history. It's a testament to the power of curiosity, patience, and the refusal to give up. Historians will still argue over the details, the dates, the true origins. They'll debate whether this was the first toy or just one among many, whether it changed the course of invention or simply spun in its own small orbit. But you know the truth. The bamboo copter wasn't just a toy. It was a seed planted in the minds of children, in the hands of dreamers, in the silent spaces where ideas grow. It carried with it the whisper of wings, the promise of flight, the belief that the sky belongs to everyone. And that promise, fragile, stubborn, beautiful, has never stopped spinning. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let yourself drift gently into the night. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary journeys begin with the simplest of toys. And sometimes, the quietest dreams are the ones that change the world. Sweet dreams.